welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. Kay Murray, Craig Burley and Shaka Hislop here in the studio. As we speak, as we go to where Florentino Perez is speaking right now in Spain.
You're laughing at me for.
Because obviously we went through all of this yesterday. We will be revisiting.
Just run yesterday's show.
No,
We can go home.
there's no doubt some more updates with Florentino Perez speaking right now. So a little later on in the show, Alex Kirkland will be joining us, but we're going to get to some more concrete information right now.
Told you yesterday.
Oh, okay. All right.
Science.
One of the feelings was that even though we know he's in high demand and everybody really respects everything he's done so far, this is a big step up for him. How's it being viewed in Spain?
Yeah, a lot of excitement. People loving here, of course, the sort of the dominance of Spanish coaches and Basque coaches in particular in the Premier League with Mikel Arteta, Xabi Alonso, Unai Emery, and now Iraola as well. People, I think, accept that this is a big challenge. I think, as far as I'm concerned, it's maybe a slight how he does at Liverpool and how he competes next season, like I say, against Xabi Alonso at Chelsea, against Mikel Arteta at Arsenal as well.
It's officially official, and now he can start putting the work in. Obviously, a lot of
Well, now we can call Stevie. It's his day off today. So it's 5 o'clock, so we'll phone him and get him out of his bed.
Yeah,
He's
all right.
still be in his bed, you know. We'll phone him and tell him that Andoni Iraola has been announced, and you can get up. But it is exciting for him, and I think he's ready for that next step. And he has done a magnificent job at Bournemouth. You know, so look at the players they sold. You know, Zabanye, Howson, Semenyo, Kerkez, Kotara. The list goes on, and yet, yeah, the club signed well, but he still had to gel those players together. Almost got them in the Champions League. This is the next step, but it's a huge step, as Alex said. This club, like most of the elite clubs in England, you know, the eyes are on you. They demand success, and they don't
a lot of big signings have not performed well. So it's a job for Areola to turn around this Liverpool to one that challenges at the top.
He's a way more qualified than what Mikel Arteta was when he took over at Arsenal. Because Mikel Arteta was coming from a coaching scenario, backroom staff, into the hot seat. And Arsenal were patient and they spent a lot of money and they built slowly and they've had success eventually. And so if you're looking at Areola and say, well, Liverpool, he's not ready, he's more ready than Mikel Arteta was by quite some stretch. That's not any guarantee, Kerry, that he's going to go in there and he's going to bring his magic. Good signings, getting more out of Gravenberg and McAllister, who were poor, finding a partner for Van Dijk, and obviously replacing Mo Salah. And one of the most important things, finding a way to make Florian Wirtz tick. I think that's super important.
Yeah, absolutely. When we talk about patience, and don't worry if you don't know this, Alex, but something that stood out is that this manager only signs 2-year contracts, it would seem. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, well, I mentioned he's been very careful in terms of how he's planned his career so far. I think he's got a really quite clear long-term plan as well. He's talked in the past about how he thinks that coaches at clubs have a shelf life. That their message, their way. He's talked about not time for a coach to be working. He'll go to Bilbao to coach. Doesn't surprise me.
The show yesterday, but Marca is saying that Enrique Riquelme
My perspective is, I think he's handled himself really well, mostly in this campaign. I think he's had a near impossible task in terms of challenging Florentino Perez. The biggest challenge for him has been getting his name out there, firstly, in terms of name recognition, people knowing who he is and what he's all about. Because, Florentino, everybody knows. Riquelme was an unknown, really, here in Spain. He isn't anymore. He's been doing his press tour. He's been going on the biggest TV shows in Spain, the biggest podcast in Spain. He's been travelling around the country today, meeting Peña's fan groups as well. I think he's handled it pretty well in terms of the strategy of the campaign, the names he's put out there. I think he's chosen wisely in terms of club legends like Raul, like Fernando Hierro, like Iker Casillas, who he said that would be part of his team as well. And then in terms of the big signings, the big names, I don't think he's much bigger than Erling Haaland and Rodri. I agree with what he says in that the denials don't surprise me at all. I think that's inevitable. You're always going to get that. He mentioned the similarities with the famous Luis Figo case with Florentino back in 2000, and there were denials then as well. And Figo did indeed join Real Madrid from Barcelona. I'm not saying that Haaland and Rodri are going to join Real Madrid. I'm not sure that they will, but the denials themselves do not surprise me. And I know it might sound outlandish, but what I would say is that Riquelme, this is a serious guy. This is a very successful businessman who's got to where he's got to in his field of renewable energy, and he's 37 years old. Got this company, international, hundreds of millions of dollars, just to get into this position, to be in this race, to meet the requirements. He had to get to a bank guarantee worth hundreds of millions of euros, and he got that based on his wealth and that of his company. This is a serious guy, and so I don't think, and I get led to believe from talking to people who's going around making these things up. There have been conversations with Rodri's camp. There have been conversations with Haaland's camp as well. Now, all of that said, I don't think he's going to win. I think Florentino Perez is going to win, but I think Riquelme's put himself in a very strong position for the post-Florentino era, whatever that is. If it's in 4 years' time or sooner or later, I think he's put himself in a really good position. And I think almost everything that he said, with one or two missteps, I think have been the right things.
That's what I was going to ask Alex. If it was a scenario where he was going to win, because otherwise we just keep buying this in the houses, don't we? I'm going to sign me, I mean, I think it's just pointless having a discussion about it if Florentino Perez is a 90% chance I'm going to win it, unless it's a big surprise comes up. I don't know, I like from that, I don't have all this on. To be honest, I'm fed up with this crap on this page. Honestly, just get on with it. It's like, I've got the World Cup to think about, shit.
Yeah, and we know you can't wait for that. Let's talk about
I'll
the
sign
other
him, and I'll sign him, and I'll sign him.
Florentino Perez, who did put out on the Florentino 2026 campaign, Alex, a video of Jose Mourinho saying "see." Let's talk about the reaction to Mourinho being announced here from the other side of the party.
And yeah, there's another video today from Florentino's camp based around that famous Mourinho press conference, the por qué, the why press conference after they were beaten by Barcelona in the Champions League all those years ago. And Mourinho came out in one of the most famous presser appearances ever in the Bernabeu and sort of talking about why Barcelona, in his mind, always got these games, these decisions going their way. And it was a spin on that, saying basically, why have we chosen Jose Mourinho? And it talks about his leadership, his competitiveness, the trophies that he's won, how he defended Real Madrid in the past. It's something we've talked about before. I know that Sid Lowe's talked about it as well, but it really does feel like this appointment is based around nostalgia for the past, for the previous Mourinho era, which was a long time ago, from 2010 to 2013. And it was worth sort of picking up on that post that I mentioned, talking about his achievements and clips of him on the touchline. It was all focused on the Mourinho of 15 years ago, 10 or more years ago, not the Mourinho of today. Mourinho's golden era, which it feels like is in the past. He's always been a divisive figure among Real Madrid fans in Spanish football. A lot of people absolutely love him. They worship him. They love what he did in terms of standing up to Pep Guardiola's Barcelona. Other Real Madrid fans, including Enrique Riquelme, who's talked about this during this campaign, and say they kind of weren't as comfortable with the way that he conducted himself and whether he fit in with the values of what they consider Real Madrid to represent. I've got to say, as a neutral, as a journalist, as someone who, for me, it's all about obviously the stories. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be box office. It's going to be brilliant having Jose Mourinho back here. That's not the same thing as saying that he's going to be a success as a coach, because I'm not sure if he is.
I mean, it is going to be box office, let's be honest. It's going to happen.
Always is with Jose Mourinho. Listen, I still have my doubts as to whether Jose Mourinho is the right choice. You can make that argument, kind of give somebody indiscipline within that dressing room. But in terms of maybe getting that dressing room back in line, you make that argument in terms of delivering silverware that Real Madrid have now gone 2 seasons without. I'm not sure he's the right choice. He's stepping in the right direction, but not far enough where Real Madrid want to be. It's been some time since Jose has lifted silverware, and I kind of have my concerns given how well Barcelona can continue to run. But Perez has kind of staked his claim here with Jose. We see how it pans out. But again, I'm not overly convinced.
What would you like to see him do with this Real Madrid team that he'd be inheriting? You've watched them so closely last year, you've seen all their troubles.
Well, I'd like to see them play some better football, but that's not a managerial appointment. It would accelerate that process, certainly not if history would tell you anything. But I'd like to see him get hold of the dressing room and be the beacon of strength. And I would like to see Florentino Perez have the manager's back, which probably didn't with Ancelotti, because he really respected him and rightly so, and probably didn't so much with Xabi Alonso, and therefore the player power and the egos within that dressing room, they ran them all. The lunatics were running the asylum in the end. The players were not quite doing what they wanted, but quite close to them. Even under Arbeloa, it was kind of similar, because they knew he was pretty weak in that position. So I'd like to see a manager at least have the strength to get the dressing room together, because without the dressing room together, fighting in the same direction for a common goal and all that sort of cliche, which Barcelona are, then success is going to be difficult. So you can't, it's almost like you've got to learn to walk before you can run. And it's the basics in football. Always start with hard work. You always start with the dressing room, with the squad, not an individual. People may think, yeah, Mbappe, yeah, Messi, blah, blah. They all had support network. Messi had support networks. Argentina didn't win the World Cup because of Messi. They won it because they had Messi and a bunch of other good players, particularly hard-working players. And that balance was right. Scaloni got it right. And so it all starts with the basics. The respect, the dressing room, the training, the work rate. And then after that, the talent comes through. Real Madrid, some of the players think it works the opposite way. And if Mourinho can't get the players to dial into that, and Hansi Flick and Barcelona continue to do what they're doing, Real Madrid will play second fiddle at best again. So that's what I'd like to see. I want to see Mourinho take hold of this dressing room and the players to follow that. Not the players to say, we don't do it that way. We didn't like what Xabi Alonso was doing. We didn't like what Carlo Ancelotti was doing in the last season. We do it our way. If that's the case, more problems are ahead for Real Madrid.
So my concern around that, and Greg's absolutely right, but you've got a Kylian Mbappe, and there's been a staff meeting in Oz about how infrequently he defends as compared to everybody that's involved in football. It seems he's
He'll do that for France. He'll do the same thing for France in the summer.
But Deschamps has a way of putting the pieces around Kylian Mbappe to make it work for France. We saw that in 2018. We saw that again in 2022. Do Real Madrid have those pieces? Again, I'm not sure. A national team setting very different from a club setting. You've also got Vinicius Junior, who, as far as I'm aware, has not signed a new contract, has a year to go. That's an issue. So now, as much as Mourinho may want to come in and kind of, rule with an iron fist and get the discipline right, Vinicius could just throw his hands up and say, well, listen, I'm gone in a year anyway. So how do you manage that with those two players, two very different circumstances, but huge problems that between Ancelotti and Xabi Alonso, they just have not been able to figure out.
How do you manage, and Alex maybe can answer this, how do you manage, Alex, the situation, for starters, with a player in Vinicius Junior who has had his issues in the last 18 months, both on and off the field, with managers, the crowd, his form? How do you manage a relationship between himself and the potential new manager, bearing in mind the incident we saw that was very public in the game against Benfica and Mourinho's words in the preceding 48 hours after that? How do you reconcile that with this player?
I think it's difficult, and the Vinicius Junior situation is incredibly delicate, given he's coming up to having just 1 year left on his contract. We've been told there'll be nothing done until after the World Cup. It's a World Cup in which Vinicius he could start for Brazil. He could strengthen his hand in those negotiations. He could flop with Brazil and potentially weaken his hands, and Real Madrid have a decision to make. I think that despite all that happened in terms of that confrontation around the Benfica game, I think that Jose Mourinho would love to get a count on Vinicius Junior. But up to what point can you do that when you're into the last year of your contract and you're a player of this caliber? I think Real Madrid have a huge decision to make ahead of next season in terms of, do they give him a new deal? I think that's still probably the most likely scenario, but right now we can't rule anything out because, like I say, the clock is ticking. There is no movement. All the noises from Florentino Perez, for example, during this campaign have been, I would like Vinicius Junior to stay, but that's all he said. I would like him to stay. He hasn't said he will stay.
Any updates so far on Florentino Perez tonight, Alex?
I should say, so as we're speaking, he's live on Spanish TV. He's on the TV set that's next to me. I can't do justice, Kate, to what this program is that he's appearing on. It's not something I tend to watch. It's a show that I'm told deals with unexplained kind of mysteries, unsolved cases, UFOs. There are a lot of jokes that we could make that we probably shouldn't, but Florentino Perez is live on that show right now being interviewed. It's a problem that lasts 3 hours. I just kept the TV guide. He's still talking. He has said that he will sign Denzel Dumfries, the Inter wing-back who had been trailed in the last few days. So that's the second signing that he has sort of made official for his campaign alongside Ibrahim Konate. He's talked about signing a star, talked about signing a midfielder, but as I talk to you right now, he hasn't given that name, Kate. But I'm going to keep watching because he might be there for a while yet.
Unexplained mystery.
Whereas the X-Files, Florentino Perez is all apparently.
Might start explaining a little bit of what's gone on the last 2 years with Real Madrid. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Spain because we've got to see them in friendly actions. We are seeing these World Cup ones. So is it because of the Euros that they are as favoured as they are right now, and what we saw last time out from them?
Yeah, they've had some peculiar World Cup experiences, have they? Of course, everyone remembers what happened in 2018 with Lopetegui being dismissed literally on the eve of the tournament by the then Federation President, Luis Rubiales, and that sort of really dynamited their preparations for that competition. And then under Luis Enrique, they really flopped in the last World Cup as well and underperformed. So that's certainly true. But yes, of course, I think what we saw from Spain at the Euros, we've seen few international teams do, which is to perform at such a consistently high level right the way through a tournament from start to finish, beating pretty much all the other big name teams along the way. You know, there were no quibbles. There were no question marks about what Spain did at Euro 2024. They beat all the other good teams, and they beat them playing really good, really exciting football. They really set the bar at an almost impossible level, I think. And the biggest challenge for them now, I think, is going to be to try and sort of live up to that and repeat that.
Before we let you go, Alex, we do need some more updates from the Unexplained Mystery show that Florentino Perez is featuring on right now.
Yeah, one of the unexplained things is which player he's planning to sign next week, Kate. He has said it won't be harder.
Oh. Yeah, we've got some friendly action coming up for you.
Like that, you know, decent side, but that's not a simplistic group for France. And you know, if I was Frank Leboeuf, I would be slightly concerned, I think. Really.
Well, I could say I don't care. You know, it's a friendly game, blah blah blah, and France didn't play with their whole big stuff.